Character agency is a fundamental part of creating any good character. Today, I want to give you 3 tips on how you can make sure your characters are strong, independent actors that feel alive and real, rather than like marionette puppets on the writer's string. Before we do just that, we should define what character agency is exactly. Simply, character agency refers to the ability and motivation of a character in a story to make choices and to take actions that drive the plot forward. It's a fundamental aspect of storytelling and plays a crucial role in creating engaging and dynamic narratives. When we talk about agency, we talk about the ability of characters to make decisions that fit with their personality and background without them feeling like it's being dictated by the writers themselves. You want your characters to feel alive and free. You yourself have agency in the real world. The more freedom you have over aspects of your life, the more agency you have. The more power you have to affect things around you, the more agency there is in your life. The same should be the case for your characters too, if you want them to be engaging and interesting for your reader. Now, a character being in prison, like Andy Dufresne, doesn't mean that they don't have agency just because they are not in a position of authority or to make all of the free decisions available to them. Agency is far more personal than that. It's much more about what they can do that creates an intriguing narrative, but that also comes from within them. Andy is able to take many actions that push the story onwards and are in line with his character, despite being physically restricted. Wonder Woman is the same, as despite not being the most knowledgeable person of the era she finds herself in, she makes strong and free decisions that she fully owns, rather than it feeling like the writer playing out a power fantasy using Wonder Woman as an action doll. Similarly, a character being forced to act in certain ways by the world around them or other characters, like Bilbo being sent on an unexpected adventure, do not deny them agency either. Agency is more about how the characters react to new situations and the things that are out of their control, rather than being the instigator of everything all the time in every situation. Bilbo embraces the unknown and does his best to deal with it in the small ways that he can. Sarah Connor is another great example of a character being pressured and forced to take certain decisions, but ultimately making her own choices that reflect her agency and will to achieve the goal of escaping the various Terminators that are sent after her. So let's look at 3 crucial elements to creating strong agency when you're writing. First of all, your characters have to be proactive rather than reactive most of the time. Your characters should be taking action that actively molds the events and the narrative. When a character is simply someone who things happen to, the story comes across very much as a concept or situation that the writer thought was cool and wanted to include, but didn't actually account for any of the choices and characters within it. The film Battleship is an example where things just sort of happen, and the characters watch the spectacle rather than doing anything meaningful or feeling like independent actors. Your character needs to be making decisions that impact the plot, like Ripley hunting down the alien or Max deciding to turn back to help Furiosa. These are choices that come across as if the characters themselves have made the decision, rather than being dictated to by the silent writer. The decisions must be hard, and they must be crafted into your story to have an impact. They also don't have to be successful all the time either, and unexpected consequences are a great way to generate more opportunities for agency, but they have to matter, and they can't just be knee-jerk reactions all the time. Just like in the real world, the decisions that you make about your lifestyle indicate how much agency you have. If you make the positive changes now, rather than waiting for a doctor to tell you to do so, you have more agency. Second, your characters need to have defined goals and motivations. The importance of these has been covered in another video, but you need a reason behind the actions that your characters are making. Forrest Gump isn't doing all he's doing and retelling his story for no reason. He's doing so because he wants to be with his childhood sweetheart. This gives his choices more depth and emotional complexity, and therefore the character more agency, as we feel he is making clear and logical decisions rather than contrived ones foisted upon him by the writer. Contrast this with something like the Twilight films, where Bella seems to be pushed along by the other characters in the story and very rarely makes her own defined decisions with goals and motivations clearly laid out. This doesn't mean that she's a terrible character per se, just that she doesn't have very much agency. or the goals or defined motivations outside of the surface-level desires that she states. It makes her unbelievable as a character and hard for the reader to emotionally invest in. This then very much comes across as the writer enjoying their concept, a vampire-woman-werewolf love triangle, far more than letting the characters enjoy it themselves. The final part is another that we've discussed before, which is that we need to create character growth and evolution as the character moves through the decisions before them. Their agency should swell as they gain more experience and their decisions impact the world around them, and they learn how to make better choices in the future. If you don't want them to feel shuttled through the story like Sam Witwicky in Transformers, just being moved from set piece to set piece and growing very little as a character, then you need to make sure that there is genuine moments of reflection and expansion for your characters, to let them grow and breathe and gain more agency. Batman changes his worldview across The Dark Knight, and certainly grows beyond his strict moral code into something equating a more realistic and rounded character. So just remember, your characters should be treated as people, not pawns or prisoners that you move around. The more freedom you give them, the more interesting your story will be to your reader, the less predictable the narrative will appear, and the more alive your characters will seem to your audience. Character agency is the key. Let them exist beyond the confines of your ideas, ideology, or concepts so that they can truly start to live.